The ocean is so bizarre in and of itself. There's just so many weird creatures in the ocean.
It's such an alien environment to us as terrestrial mammals.
Robert Kensington slammed his resignation on the desk while he was still dripping wet because he knew that if he stayed on that oil rig one more night, he would end up like the others. He saw a light at 180 feet that did not come from a boat or a fish, but from a shifting shape that showed him visions of his friends drowning. What most people do not realize is that the ocean does not just take your body, it marks your soul so you can never truly leave. He scrambled onto the deck in total terror because he realized that something under the rig had been stalking his crew for weeks. Shattered nerves at 180 feet. The ocean is a deceptive beast that looks beautiful from the surface of a massive oil rig, but every diver knows that the blue water is just a thin skin over a world that wants to finish you off. Robert Kensington was the best of the best, a man they called the Ghost because he was so calm during disasters, but on this Tuesday he was shaking so hard he could barely stand. He stood in the captain's office with water pooling on the carpet, his chest moving up and down as if he had just escaped a monster. He did not say a word at first, he just slapped a wet piece of paper onto the metal desk, which was his resignation. Captain Reeves looked up from his coffee and saw a man who was completely undone, a man whose nerves had been shattered by something he saw at 180 feet. Basically, the bravest man on the rig was now terrified of the very water that had given him a career for 10 years. Reeves thought Robert was suffering from the drunk feeling that happens when you breathe air too deep, but Robert's eyes were clear and full of a sharp, cold terror. He insisted that his air mix was perfect and that he had checked his gauges 5 times before the fear set in. He told the captain that the water went silent, a kind of silence that felt heavy against his ears, as if the entire ocean had held its breath at once. Everyone is obsessed with shark stories, but what Robert described was something much more intelligent and much more patient than a fish. He explained that the amberjacks and the groupers did not just swim away, they fled in a panic that left the water feeling like a graveyard. He was exactly at 180 feet when the world changed, and he knew right away that he was no longer alone in the dark. The shift in the water was the first sign that the routine job was about to turn into a nightmare. To understand the terror, you have to realize that Robert was alone because his partner, Johnson, had called in sick with a bad stomach, leaving Robert to check the pipes by himself. He had descended at 2 p.m. into perfect water with 60 feet of visibility, feeling good about the easy money he was about to make. But 20 minutes in, the clicking of the shrimp stopped and the hum of the rig's engine seemed to vanish into a void. And that is putting it lightly, because the silence felt like it was trying to crush his skull from the inside out. He turned around with his heavy dive light, expecting to see a shark, but the beam of light found nothing but empty black water. Then a pulse of blue light appeared from the trench deep below him, rising with a speed that should have caused a massive wave. As the light got closer, Robert saw that it was not a submarine or a whale, but a shifting shape about 20 feet across made of angles and planes. It looked like a giant glowing kaleidoscope that was moving through the water without actually swimming, as if it were a glitch in the world. What most people do not realize is that this thing did not have eyes, but it had a face that reflected Robert's own fear back at him. He felt a sudden blast of images in his head, violent and quick, showing him the faces of his crewmates as seen from deep under the water. The creature was telling him that it had been watching them for a very long time, and it was finally time to move in. Robert tried to swim up, but he had to follow the rules of the deep, or his blood would turn into bubbles and take him out. The creature hung there in the water, watching him struggle against the pressure and the fear. Vanished without a trace. Robert finally made it to the surface and scrambled up the ladder like his life depended on it, not even looking back until he was safe on the metal deck. When he told Captain Reeves the story, he asked a question that made the captain's blood turn to ice. Where was Johnson? Johnson had not been seen all day, and when the crew went to check his room, they found the bed was still made and his dive gear was missing. Things get even crazier when you realize that another diver named Peters had also disappeared a few days ago under strange circumstances. The record said Peters had gone home for a family emergency, but when Reeves called the mainland, they said Peters never arrived on the boat. 2 men were gone, their gear was gone, and no one could remember actually seeing them leave the rig. The realization hit them both at the same time. The men were not quitting or going home, they were walking into the water. So here is the deal. The creature was using a siren song made of light and thoughts to lure the men off the rig in the middle of the night. Robert remembered seeing Johnson walking toward the equipment bay the night before, looking like he was sleepwalking or in a deep trance. He had asked Johnson if he was okay, but the man had just stared right through him as if he were already under the waves. The creature was harvesting the crew, breaking their minds until they chose to sink into the blackness to join the glowing geometry in the trench. Robert had only survived because his fear was just a little bit stronger than the creature's hypnotic pull. The rig was no longer a workplace, it was a buffet for something that lived in the abyss. Captain Reeves ordered an immediate evacuation of the rig, but they all knew the ocean was vast and the nearest help was hours away. Robert refused to wait, packing only his wallet and his passport, wanting to get as far away from the coast as he possibly could. He told the captain that the creature had shown him visions of the entire crew, including the captain himself, floating in the dark. It has been missing for years, but the truth about how many people disappear from offshore rigs every year is a detail that will shock you. The company usually calls these things accidents or equipment failures, but Robert knew the gear was perfect and the men were pros. They were being taken by an intelligence that was patient enough to wait until they were alone. As Robert walked to the helicopter pad, he looked down through the metal floor and saw a faint blue pulse of light in the churning water below. The creature was no longer staying in the trench, it was coming up to the surface, circling the rig like a wolf around a campfire. I am not going to lie, the way Robert ran for that helicopter was the only reason he is still alive to tell the story today. He did not say goodbye to anyone, and he did not look back as the helicopter lifted off into the humid air. He saw the rig getting smaller and smaller, a tiny island of light in a sea of absolute darkness that was hiding a hungry, glowing god. The ocean was not just water to him anymore, it was a hungry mouth that was slowly closing on everyone he knew. The helicopter moved away, but the mark on Robert's mind was already permanent. Echoes from the Nevada desert. Robert Kensington lives in a small town in Nevada now, a place where the horizon is a jagged line of scorched rock and the ground is dry enough to crack under the weight of a shadow. The sun here is relentless, hot enough to bake the alkaline dirt into brittle bricks, and that is exactly why he chose it. He works in heavy construction, spending his days moving tons of earth and pouring concrete, solid, unyielding things that have nothing to do with the fluid treachery of the abyss. He stays far away from the cooling sprays of irrigation lines or the local reservoirs. He never takes a bath. The sensation of being submerged, of the water closing over his chest, is a physical weight he can no longer bear. But despite the hundreds of miles of sand and sagebrush between him and the coast, the desert provides no true sanctuary. There is a specific detail that haunts him, a lingering symptom of his survival. He still hears the silence of the deep sea every time it starts to rain. When the rare desert storms roll in, the smell of damp earth doesn't bring relief. Instead, it triggers a sensory displacement. The sound of droplets hitting the tin roof of his trailer transforms into the muffled, rhythmic thrum of the Poseidon rig, and the air grows heavy with the phantom taste of salt and pressurized oxygen. In his dreams, the transformation is complete. His cramped bedroom doesn't just flood, it dissolves. The walls fall away to reveal a pressurized void where the water is so cold it feels like burning. In the corner of the room, near the closet where he keeps his work boots, a glowing, impossible geometry begins to unfold. It is a sequence of light and shadow that defies human mathematics, fractals of bioluminescence that pulse with a slow, predatory intelligence. In the center of that light, he sees Johnson and Peters. They are still down there, suspended in the crushing dark of the midnight zone. They don't look like men who drowned, they look like men who were harvested. Their skin has taken on the translucence of deep-sea glass, and their eyes have widened into dark, lidless pits that drink in the faint glow of the creature's world. They are no longer his crewmates, they are components of something vast and ancient. Looking at them, Robert realizes the terrifying truth of his escape. The creature did not lose him, and it certainly did not let him go. It simply tagged him and sent him back to the surface to be a living receiver, a messenger for the rest of us. broadcasting the frequency of the deep into a world that thinks it is safe. The aftermath at the Poseidon rig was scrubbed clean by corporate lawyers and safety inspectors. They reported 3 more unexplained drownings in the months after Robert fled, and eventually the company shut down that entire sector for good. The official press release cited unstable tectonic activity and extreme pressure fluctuations, but the men on the docks knew better. The truth is that the divers stopped going down. No amount of hazard pay could convince a man to drop into a hole where the water seemed to watch you back. What most people fail to grasp in their daily lives is the fragile nature of our tenancy on this planet. We tell ourselves we are the masters of the earth, but we are merely guests clinging to the dry, sun-bleached parts. The vast majority of this world is dark, cold, and inhabited by things that have been watching our civilizations rise and fall for millions of years from beneath the waves. Now those things are starting to move. They are reaching up, testing the boundaries of the tide. If you ever feel that sudden icy prickle on the back of your neck while you are standing near the shore or even near a deep well or a dark lake, do not stop to look for a shark or a shadow. Just run, because once that light from the deep marks you, it never stops calling. The ocean is patient. It has all the time in the world to wait for you to finally tire of the heat and the dust and dive back into the silence. Do you think Robert is truly safe in the desert? Or is the water just waiting for the right moment to claim him? Could there be more of these things under every oil rig in the world? Let us know what you think in the comments. If you want more terrifying deep-sea mysteries, hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.